Hey everyone! Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories that hit deep and leave you thinking. I never imagined my sister's wedding would be remembered for my toast, or for the silence that followed it. I'm Daniel, a 40-year-old IT consultant, married to Megan for 8 years. My sister Claire was always the sunshine of our family, and her wedding was meant to be flawless. I had the honor of being her best man. Proud, a little nervous, and more than a bit sentimental. Megan looked incredible that day, as she always does. But lately, she'd made it a habit to make me the target of every social gathering. Little jabs at my dad jokes, my thinning hairline, or my supposed cluelessness about romance. Normally I'd laugh along. That day I shouldn't have. The reception hall sparkled under fairy lights, champagne flowed, and Claire floated through the room like a dream. After a challenging year, this was a moment of happiness for our family. Then the DJ handed Megan the microphone. "It's speech time," she said with a grin. "But before Danny gets all sentimental, let me give you a sneak peek. He'll probably cry halfway, forget his lines, and start talking about his fantasy football team." Laughter rippled through the room. I forced a smile. It wasn't new, Megan teasing me in public, but the sting always cut deeper when family was watching. She went on, "You know, Claire asked me what advice I'd give her about marriage. I said, pick someone who knows how to fix Wi-Fi. That's the only reason I keep Danny around." More laughter. Phones came out. Someone shouted, "Roast him, Megan." And she did. 5 minutes of what she called friendly fire. But it didn't feel friendly. I caught my parents' polite smiles, my sister's uneasy glance, and felt that familiar, humiliating burn in my chest. The kind you hide behind a grin. The more Megan spoke, the smaller I felt. When she finally handed me the microphone, she whispered, "Top that, babe." It wasn't playful. It was a challenge. I stood there, heart thudding. The room still chuckled. Glasses clinked. I stared at the mic, then at Megan, who looked pleased with herself. And something inside me shifted. A quiet, razor-sharp calm I hadn't known before. "Thank you, Megan," I said. "You always know how to warm up a crowd." Few chuckles. My voice steady, I continued. "You know, marriage is funny. Everyone says it's about finding someone who makes you laugh. But no one mentions it's also about finding someone who won't laugh at you when you're trying your best." The laughter faded. Megan's smile faltered just slightly. I turned toward my sister and her husband. "Claire, when we were kids, you'd hide behind me whenever you were scared. I promised I'd always protect you. Standing here today, seeing your happiness, I realize protecting someone isn't about standing in front of them. It's about standing with them, even when they're vulnerable." I paused. The room was silent. I could hear the faint hum of the AC, the clink of a glass. "I hope you always stand with each other," I said. "Even when the world laughs, even when mistakes happen, even when one of you forgets what partnership really means." Megan's eyes flickered. She knew. Everyone did. I raised my glass. To respect, to kindness, and to laughter that builds, not breaks. We toasted. Some clapped quietly. Others glanced between Megan and me. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, reflective. Later, when the music resumed, Megan stayed quiet. No photos, no dancing. On the ride home, she stared out the window, her reflection passing between streetlights. Finally, she said, "You embarrass me." I didn't respond immediately. I thought of all the little jabs she'd thrown over the years and how I'd laughed just to keep the peace. How respect erodes not in a single betrayal, but in repeated, tiny humiliations dressed as jokes. Pulling into the driveway, I turned off the engine. "No," I said. I stopped pretending it was funny. She didn't reply, just got out and walked inside. That night, I slept on the couch, not because she demanded it, but because I needed space from the version of myself that kept tolerating it. The next morning, the silence in our home was louder than any argument. Megan moved around the kitchen without looking at me. Every clatter, every hiss of the coffee maker sounded sharp. I wanted to speak, but I stayed quiet. Finally, she broke it. "You could have pulled me aside. You didn't have to humiliate me in front of everyone." I took a breath. "You mean the way you've been doing to me for years?" Her face stiffened. "That's different." I smiled faintly. "Then why didn't it feel like one?" She didn't answer, just stared at her coffee, stirring sugar that had already dissolved. I used to think love could survive anything if you laughed through it. Now I knew laughter could be cruelty in disguise, the slow kind that hides behind charm and timing. For days we barely spoke. Claire called to thank me for the toast, saying people told her it was the most honest speech they'd ever heard. I smiled, but inside I felt something shift. The version of me that tolerated small humiliations had finally left. A week later, Megan came to me while I was fixing the lawnmower. She sat on the steps, arms crossed. "I watched the wedding video," she said. "You looked cold." I replied, "I wasn't cold. I was done pretending." She sighed. "Everyone thought you were taking a shot at me." I nodded. I was. But not out of anger, out of honesty. She looked away, eyes glistening. "I didn't realize I made you feel that small." I said, "I don't think you meant to. But intent doesn't erase impact." Strange, but I wasn't angry, just tired. Tired from years of laughing through discomfort. That night, she asked if we could talk properly. We sat on the porch, the autumn air crisp and clear. Megan admitted, "I like being the funny one because it made me feel powerful, like I could control the room." I nodded at my expense. We talked for hours, maybe for the first time in years. She said she never noticed how her teasing landed because everyone else laughed. I admitted I never stopped her, because silence was easier than confrontation. It wasn't cinematic. No tears, no dramatic music. Just two people realizing how far they drifted between punchlines. Weeks passed. She stopped using humor as armor. I stopped letting resentment speak. We started having quiet dinners again. Laughter returned, not as a weapon but as warmth. Respect once cracked doesn't seal overnight, but slowly it healed. Months later, at another family gathering, someone mentioned my toast. My uncle said it should be in a marriage manual. People laughed kindly this time. I looked at Megan, she smiled. Not the performative kind, but a small, genuine one. Later, she squeezed my hand and whispered, "I deserved that silence." I looked at her. We both did. When we got home, she removed her heels, leaned against the doorframe and said, "I never realized how cruel jokes can sound until I heard my own voice on that video." I nodded. The crowd laughed, but they didn't know the story. She came closer. "Can we start over?" I didn't promise, just said, "Let's try to remember what respect sounds like." And we did, slowly and perfectly. Now when friends tease each other, I notice her glancing at me, checking if I'm okay. It's small, but it matters. Every time I remember that night at my sister's wedding, I realize my toast wasn't just a speech, it was a mirror. It showed us both who we'd become. I didn't end the laughter that day. I just changed what we were laughing about.